What's up YouTube, Capital G here, giving you guys that Yubel deck profile as promised. This is an archetype in a deck that almost drove me to the brink of insanity as I was building it and testing it on my live stream. The Yubel cards are from 2008's Phantom Darkness, way back in the GX era, and honestly, they weren't even really good back then, let alone they haven't really aged all that well. However, this is the solace when it comes to Yubel. There are a lot more ways to use Yubel effectively now. A lot of archetypes that kind of support Yubel and make it easier to go into the second and third forms respectively. You guys know that I try to build these decks to be as competitive as humanly possible, and that's what I tried to take advantage of. The newer cards that can support Yubel to the fullest extent. So let's go ahead and jump into it. You guys can see right off the top, of course, we have our 3 copies of the original Yubel. My pride won't allow me to call this a Yubel deck if I'm not playing a maximum amount of 3 copies of the original Yubel. You do not want to summon her. Basically, what you want to do is you want to hard draw this card and then blow it up and summon your second and then maybe the third forms straight from your deck or from your graveyard or your hand. One of the cool things about Yubel is, you know, there's no hard once per turns on any of these cards, because they're from the GX era, and the Yubel forms summon themselves from wherever. Doesn't matter where they are, you're going to be able to get them. Now, the Yubel monsters, they don't have any stats and you can't do battle damage with them, but you're using them for your utility and or their utility, I should say. We're playing 2 copies of the Terror Incarnate, and then that leaves us with 1 copy of Ultimate Nightmare. This is where the fun happens, and yes, I have actually summoned the 3rd copy or the 3rd form of Yubel multiple times in testing. This one is probably the most fun one, and this one is kind of like a Ring of Destruction, but it's battle based. It's anytime a monster battles it, whether you attack or they attack it foolishly, you get to destroy that monster and then inflict effect damage equivalent to that monster's attack value. This one is a dark hole during the end phase, and it's really awesome because we run Fire Kings in this build, and this card works exceptionally well with the Fire Kings. This entire deck is based on destruction of monsters as much as possible. Your monsters, your opponent's monsters, etc., etc. We're playing 2 copies of the Fire King Arvada. So this is a blind second build of Yubel. The reason I'm blinding second in every duel is because the Fire King cards, the Yubel cards, they don't do anything going first, and they take advantage of monster destruction and generally destroying your opponent's monsters. We want them to have monsters on board. Ideally, that requires us to, go second, and we try to get as many cards as possible, because we're playing a deck that is lower tier than the meta. This is our effect negation. We can, if our opponent activates like a hand trap or an important monster effect we don't want to deal with, we can blow up another fire card in our hand or on our field, and we just get to negate that card, which is nice. We're playing 2 copies of the Fire King Barong. This is our Rhoda. For the archetype, when it's destroyed by a card effect, it can, during the next standby phase, search like a Fire King card. You can get the spells or you can get the monsters. Generally, I prefer to get the spells, but if you're in a bad position, then you can go ahead and get the monsters. I like to get the spells because Tenki can search the monsters anyway, so the spells are a little harder to get to. We're playing 2 copies, of course, of our Fire King Yaksha. This is a card that you're used to seeing in Fire Kings, but it's actually better in this build of Fire Kings with Yubel, because it can trigger our Yubel and our hand. So that's obviously like really strong. And if we have to destroy one of our Fire King monsters, that's fine. We'll just get advantage off of that. Now, of course, because we do want a little bit of pushing power and we want all the board wipes, we of course are going to run a couple copies of your Garunix. This card works incredibly well with the second form of Yubel, because the second form of Yubel will blow up the Garunix, then Garunix will summon itself during the standby phase, it'll blow up the second form of Yubel, and then we'll be able to get to the third form of Yubel, and it's basically like an easy way of kind of ranking up your Yubel and getting a stronger monster on board, and it doesn't really require you to do anything other than just kind of play your deck. We're playing 2 copies of Coach Soldier Wolfbark. So the reason Wolfbark is in here and why it's so strong is kind of obvious. All of these Fire King monsters outside of Garunix are level 4. This is basically the best normal summon that we have. It allows us to reborn one of our Fire King monsters, instantly go into Utopia Double Cheese, rank 4s. We can go into Dual Little Chimera, Hita, all that good stuff. Just a really strong play. Plus it's searchable by Tenki, and we were already going to run Tenki in this deck anyways. We're playing Zephyros the Elite. This might not be standard than Fire Kings, but it should be. This card is excellent with all the ways we have of popping monsters in our hand. Zephyros is excellent fodder, plus it allows us to reuse our Tenkis or something like Dragonic Diagram. We can use that twice in a turn, and it's rank 4 Exceed fodder, and we're already going to make rank 4s anyway. So Zephyros the Elite might as well just be a damn Fire King monster because it has too much synergy with the archetype not to play. We're playing 2 copies of the True King of Fire. This guy, once again, has incredible synergy with this archetype, or with all the cards in this deck. Number 1, this can trigger Yubel and get us to our second form of Yubel. We can use Zephyros the Elite as fodder. We can also bandit or destroy any of our Fire King monsters as fodder. They'll activate, and then this guy, if he pops 2 fires, it can actually banish a card on our opponent's side of the field. Plus, it's just a good beater. Even if we summon it with like Circle of the Fire Kings, it's excellent. We're playing a little spicy tech here. This is Nine-Tailed Fox, 2 copies. This card is amazing, especially with the Fire King, because generally what we want to do, right? If you have Diagram, you pop the Nine-Tailed Fox, activate or search this guy. This guy, if it's destroyed by a card effect or battle, it'll give you 2 fire zombie tokens. Those tokens can be used for Circle of the Fire Kings or Link Summoning. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll, end up getting the tokens. I'll Monster Reborn this guy with his effect to tribute 2 monsters. Then I'll just pop it again with the True King of Fire, get 2 more tokens, and potentially banish a monster on my opponent's side of the field. Turn those tokens into like Hita, Monster Reborn, one of their monsters. Just a really strong play off of 2 cards. Now, as I said earlier, since we are going second and we're blinding second, I felt like Dogoran was the best monster in this case. I felt like it was a little better than Ash Blossom. We can take our opponent's best monster, we contribute it off the field, then we can actually start playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Also, if our opponent doesn't have a powerful monster, then what we can do is we can use this as discard fodder. We can pop it with something like Diagram, or even, I don't know, Fire King Island, the True King of Fire, and then we can Monster Reborn this, or we can bring it back from Circle of the Fire King. So Dogoran just felt like it was invaluable, whether we were going to use it as a kaiju or we were going to use it as kind of like, fodder for our plays. To the spells, we're playing, 3 copies of probably Cap G's favorite spell card in the entire game of Yu-Gi-Oh! That would be Pot of Extravagance. So, as I said before, we are looking to blind second in every duel. And really, our extra deck isn't important because, Fire Kings, True Kings, Yubel, they don't have extra deck cards. We're not going to summon True King of all calamities, basically, ever. So, the other cards that we want to summon, like Utopia Double, we can just play 3 copies of that card. Also, going second and starting with 7 cards is just bananas, so I felt like Extravagance was a must, and none of these archetypes draw cards, so there'll never be any conflicts there. We were always going to play 3 copies of Fire Formation Tenki because it searches Wolfbark and also it searches our Fire King monsters outside of Garunix. Plus, this can get, get balanced with something like Zephyros so that we can use it again and again. We're playing 3 copies of Circle of the Fire Kings. This allows us to maximize our battle damage. As I said before, sometimes we can blow up our, our tokens from like the zombie Nine-Tailed Fox, and that will actually allow us to possibly get more battle damage in and kill our opponent. Also, being able to summon like, a kaiju, a Dogoran from the graveyard is huge. Basically, just getting as many attacks as possible, always a good thing. We're playing 2 copies of Onslaught of the Fire Kings. Another card that's excellent going second. This allows us to potentially summon Garunix or going for a level 4, which can just go into a rank 4 play, Utopia, Cheese, etc., etc. We have to play field spells because we need as many ways of popping monsters in our hand as humanly possible. Fire King Island will trigger Yubel. It'll get Zephyros and Zephyros the Elite in the graveyard, and it'll also get us a search of any of our Fire King monsters. So, we're gonna play this card. We're playing a couple copies of Dragonic Diagram. This is the same exact purpose as Fire King Island. It just does the same exact thing, basically. It allows us to trigger Yubel and get Zephyros the Elite in the graveyard. Also searches the True King of Fire. This guy is not a hard once per turn, which is kind of nice because of the Zephyros the Elite play, but for the most part, it's just kind of relevant with that. Then we are playing 1 copy of terraforming. The reason I'm playing terraforming and I like the 2-to-1 ratio instead of a 3-2 ratio is because the terraforming can allow, or like terraforming can be either field spell, as opposed to if I was running a 3-2 ratio and I open with either field spell, I'd basically be stuck with that card. This allows us to kind of pick and choose what card we want for any given situation. So obviously it's just a little more versatile. Then finally, last couple of spells we run are Monster Reborn and Double or Nothing. So these are just kind of cheese cards. People have said before, I say it all the time, if you're running kind of a lower tier deck, you generally want as many like cheese cards as possible without sacrificing consistency. This allows us to just win the game with Utopia Double, so I'll take it for 1 brick. And we also can blow this up with Diagram if we dead draw it. Monster Reborn, there are so many big beaters in this deck. Dogoran, True King of Fire, Garunix. I feel like being able to summon those guys is just huge. Also, potentially being able to use something like Circle of the Fire Kings is just like even more ways of summoning from the graveyard. So Monster Reborn just made a lot of sense to me in this deck. Finally, to the extra deck. This is fairly simple because it is an extravagance extra deck, which basically just translates to run 3 of all these damn cards, or, you know, run multiples of all these cards. We're playing 3 copies of Hita. Hita is so strong in this format, and it really has been amazing since Salamangreats got released. There's Salamangreats. Ash Blossom is arguably the most popular monster in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Kagari, Sky Strikers always want to get that, on field and maybe in the graveyard as quickly as possible. You can revive all those monsters. Hita, when it's destroyed by battle, it's fine. It'll float into a Wolfbark or sometimes the Fire King monsters. Also, the monster that you bring back from your opponent's graveyard, not only can you attack them with it, but then you can also use it for Circle of the Fire King. So imagine bringing back like your opponent's Sunlight Wolf, attacking them with Sunlight Wolf, then using Circle and bringing back like a Dogoran. It's actually like really, really strong. We're playing 3 copies of Dual Little Chimera, just giving us a little more damage. Also being able to get cards back from the graveyard. You play 3 because we're running extravagance. We don't want to lose our ability to summon any of these cards, so we're maxing out. We're playing 2 copies of the original Utopia. This is solely in here for the Utopia Double Cheese. This should be self-explanatory. Double or Nothing, 10,000 attack monster wins the duel. Now, I'm also playing a backup plan of the Utopia Beyond. This is just in case we banish, our copies of like 39. This can serve as a really strong OTK potential play. This one can be summoned off double. You get a 6,000 attack Beyond. It makes all your opponent's monsters 0 attack. So basically, it's like attacking them for 6,000. Then we play a backup plan to the backup plan, which would be Utopia, the Lightning, just, high damage card if you have to attack face downs and you don't want them to trigger. Lastly, we're playing Tiger King because obviously we run Tinky in this build, and that searches Tinky, and a lot of these monsters are Beast Warrior. We play Dweller in case we ever have to go first, which God forbid. It's a way of beating Salamangreat and like zombies and stuff. And then Tornado Dragon. I like Tornado Dragon a little more than Nightmare Phoenix, even though Nightmare Phoenix is fire. Number 1, this guy can activate twice. Number 2, this guy has better stats. And number 3, this guy doesn't require a discard to blow up face down, or really to blow up spells and traps. So feel like Tornado Dragon has a higher ceiling than Nightmare Phoenix. The only thing about Phoenix, I guess you could run it over it is honestly because it's fire based. Like that's really the only reason you'd run Phoenix over Tornado Dragon. But yeah, I feel like this deck is actually this is something that is viable just because of the new cards. And if you guys enjoyed the deck profile, please give the video a thumbs up. If you guys want to see more deck profiles, give the video a thumbs up as well. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already and turn on the notification bell for daily videos.